Many of us, black, white, and other, were so proud not only of the most artistic and expressive performances during the BET Awards that just took place a couple of days ago, but we were more so just swept off of our feet and amazed and proud of the speech that Jesse Williams, a very famous actor who you might know from being one of the main characters on Grey's Anatomy, that he left when he accepted the humanitarian award. And it was basically not only explaining where black people and white people and brown people or whatever people's anger against racism, but it was also kind of like putting people in check about their own prejudice against the movements that are going on right now. So we were all just like really, really happy. Now, I just so happened to catch wind of this journalist's final thoughts on this speech that he gave. Her name is Tomi Lahren, and she was giving her final thoughts on this speech. And I had to give a response, y'all. And let me just preface this by saying that I'm a new YouTuber, so to speak. I can't even say that I'm that much. But I just started my YouTube channel and making videos on a consistent basis. And when I first started doing it, I did not go in with the intention to start checking folks left and right about the things that they say or the things that they do. I wanted to comment on trending issues. I wanted to give reviews on the newest and hottest, most popular TV shows. And I didn't want to be like portraying this image of an angry black woman through any of my responses to the trending topics. However, in light of recent events, not only have I become frustrated, but I have used my YouTube channel to empower me to reach a larger audience and expressing how I feel. And not only that, but exchanging ideas with people who are calm, level minded, informed, and conscious and respectful. So please, understand that I'm not trying to come off a particular kind of way. I am multidimensional beyond having an opinion that usually is very appalled or appalled against racism, which I am, but there's more dimensions to my train of thought on a daily basis. Anywho, on to my notes about this lady. Y'all get ready, okay? Because I'm going to touch on a lot of her points. First of all, she says, is this a celebration of black entertainers or is this an opportunity to complain about the plight of wealthy black entertainers? Come on, boo. First and foremost, no. His speech was him complaining about the plight of poor, middle class, and rich blacks. Not only in the entertainment industry, but in every single industry in America. And let's just go there. It can be applied worldwide. So no, she wasn't just talking about rich black folks. She was talking about them all. Then she claims that police brutality on unarmed black men are a result of, in many cases, those people reaching for the police officer's gun or a weapon or whatever the case may be. So in other words, they might have been armed, but that doesn't mean that they weren't trying to become armed against the officer. Baby, where did you get this information? Where? Because in the majority of the high profile situations that have been coming to light as of late, they were not armed. For example, Trayvon Martin. He was being stalked by a fake cop while he was walking home from the store. Eric Gardner. He was basically suffocated to death while he was submitting to the police officers with his hands up in the air. Sandra Bland. She was talking back, but I'm pretty sure that's not something that he's not used to as an officer. She wasn't reaching for his gun, she was talking back. And if anything, maybe smoking in his face. But she has every right to do that on her own property, in and on her own property. He can't ask her to do nothing. Now, in the case of Walter Scott, where the police officer had explained, and there is video that alludes to the fact that Walter Scott was in fact reaching for his taser and they were having some kind of altercation. However, this is where you, who is not a lawyer and has no understanding of when police officers and any person can use lethal force in self-defense, what you don't understand is that there has to be a reasonable apprehension of imminent harm. Look all them words up because I'm pretty sure you're lost. So what that means is that at the point that he is shooting the gun, he has to be, to a reasonable person, he has to be in immediate danger. Okay? If you look at the tape, and I want you to look at it very carefully, he was, in fact, in my opinion, what I saw, which was like a very fleeting view, he was struggling for the taser. But after he lost that struggle, he turned and he ran away. The man was obviously unarmed, or else he would not have been reaching for the taser. He was running away from the cop, which meant that he had no intention, and no reasonable person would conclude that he is about to kill this officer or anybody else. Then she goes on to say, what equal rights do blacks not have exactly? First of all, we don't have equality in our education system. For one, yes, we do have affirmative action, but let me explain something to you. Before you can even apply to college, you got to go through elementary, middle, and high school. Those levels of education are statistically and consistently unequal to blacks and to those of a lower socioeconomic status. Blacks are statistically of a lower socioeconomic status than whites. And with that being said, they live in lower income neighborhoods and communities. Because of those lower income communities do not pay as much in property taxes, which is a progressive tax, which means that the more money that you make, the more money that you pay for taxes. The less money that you make, the less money that you pay in taxes. So the less money that you pay in taxes, the less money goes towards an education system and any other public service system. Therefore, the less money that goes into an education system, the lower quality of amenities, materials, equipment, tools, including educators that these children will have. So a social economic status leads to a lower educational system, and therefore we have inequalities in the education system that is disproportionately affecting the African American community. Now, we have affirmative action, right? So if these children do end up kind of rising above the concrete jungle and applying for college, which, oftentimes they do, they may benefit from affirmative action. However, affirmative action is not only for blacks, it is also for women. It is also for people of a lower socioeconomic status. It is also for people who are from rural or more, I would say, rare areas. So, for example, people from like Puerto Rico. There's and a unique experience that comes with those kind of people. So they do give preferential treatment or something like that. Choose your words on that one. They do give some kind of preference to people who have come from a unique background, in other words. So it's not just for Black people. And actually, even in the light of this recent case, Fisher versus the University of Texas, you have seen that this this like personal achievement index, which is usually, those extra points that affirmative action falls under, those kinds of things, including your essays and extracurricular activities, anything that's aside from your grades, those things also disproportionately benefit whites versus Blacks, especially as you can see in this Fisher case. So anyway, and check out my other video if you don't know what I'm talking about, because I'm sure people are going to have questions about that. We have unequal treatment as far as natural disaster response, which is a life or death situation. Let's not forget about Katrina, where FEMA basically abandoned Blacks for days, probably even weeks, and did not really show any sense of compassion to the mass amount of people who were left in this little stadium without enough food, water, clothing, medication. People had died in that stadium as a result of the neglect. Now, of course, the news media is going to show, oh, look at him saving that little Black girl, and oh, look at him save that little old Black lady. They're going to show those kind of things so that you don't understand, or that you don't think that there is an inequality in the response. But trust and believe, and I want you to watch When the Levees Broke by Spike Lee if you think that I'm lying. Okay, so then she goes on to say that remember that it was white people who were the majority fighting for your freedom from slavery. Okay, that is true. Okay, there were lots of whites in the North and even in scattered parts of the South who had definitely separated themselves from the Southern states that wanted to enslave Blacks. There were people who were fighting against slavery. However, let's look at the aftermath here. In the South and in the North, after slavery was abolished in 1865, whites then basically did not support equal treatment of African Americans in the employment system at the very least. Let's not talk about social services and just public areas and access to public areas and things like that. Let me just give you one example, and I did do some research on this, and I would be happy to share the link on what I'm talking about. But after slavery was abolished in 1865, the labor unions were really, really active, and they worked to exclude Blacks from this equal treatment movement within the labor system. So the earliest notion of a labor union was through a labor strike that was protesting against wage reductions, and that was in 1768, and this was in New York, so this was in the North. Slavery was abolished about 97 years later in 1865, and in 1866, just 1 year later, all of a sudden these unions started to pop up, and this was the National Labor Union. In 1886, which is 20 years later, the American Federation of Labor was chartered. But in 1895, which is less than 10 years later, they broke off and chartered the International Association of Mechanics. And the reason for this, or one of the major premises of the International Association of Mechanics, was that they were not going to allow an integrated union system. And so in 1902, this association only had 3% of Blacks in this union. Yet there was a large amount of mistreatment of Blacks through the Jim Crow system and just the prejudice against black that had been originating from slavery and beyond. So the origin of unions really was that when slavery was abolished, just 1 year later, it became very intimidating for whites who sitting on their ass for hundreds of years and really did not come with a skilled trade that they could compete against skilled laborers, blacks that had been holding y'all up for so long, they couldn't compete against that. So instead of them settling for lower wages because they did not have the skills and experience that were necessary to justify the wage, they decided that they were going to revolt against that pure economic decision to pay them according to their experience and skills. So they went on to form these unions. But then black people said, yeah, let's do that. I want to have equal wages too. And I want to have a reasonable wage too. And they said, oh, hell, that's not going to work for us. Because really, the reason why we want to do this is because you guys have too much skills over us. So, from a very early point in time, whites were always intimidated by blacks and the potential that we had to rise above the rubble. And so, therefore, even though whites were fighting against slavery because slavery was not good economically for the North, the free labor that the South was benefiting from were making the prices of their goods and their services much lower than the whites who had to pay wages to the people who were making these goods and services, right? So they said, this is not fair. We want to abolish slavery so that, we don't have this free labor anymore. And so then the unions came when they realized that this wasn't going to help them either. Okay? So whites were fighting against slavery, but they weren't fighting against equal rights. They weren't fighting for equal rights. Okay. Now, then she goes on to say that it seems like Jesse is looking for special treatment instead of equal rights. No, we want equal rights, but we don't only want it on paper. We want it in reality. And that's what he's saying, okay? Now, on to the comments, because this little white girl who's reading off a teleprompter and basically is a Muppet for whatever, network that she's on. I don't know who she really is, but she's basically a Muppet, right? It's one thing if she believes it and she's putting it out there and, that's your opinion, right? But Lord, when I looked at the comments, y'all, I was just like, Lord, racism is alive and well, y'all. And here is a common argument that is not only condescending, but it is also very ignorant, okay? They are saying that BET is racist and that basically blacks are racist because they want all this special treatment, they want all these special privileges and things like that. And if there was a white entertainment television, then there would be this huge uproar. First of all, you don't need white entertainment television because you already are highly celebrated and given preferential treatment for certain roles in the industry. A lot of these characters that are being portrayed in these movies they have a certain image in their mind of who they want it to be. And usually the hero is a white person, okay? Usually the good mannered and the good hearted person is a white person, okay? And so, and that's mostly of what these movies are all about. It's either a victim, a hero, or like a good hearted person that is saving, another person, which is another word for hero. But anyway, those are all usually white people, okay? So, BET is racist. No, it's not racist. It was made in response to a predominantly white entertainment industry that was snubbing blacks, and they weren't giving them enough exposure or television time, or just they weren't being shown on TV in the ways that they wanted to, in the frequency, in the scope that they wanted to be seen. Now, let's just be honest that BET is now not really celebrating black culture 365 days of the year because the images that they are portraying of black people are not that positive. But let's think about this here. BET is now owned by Viacom. Viacom is pretty much owned by this national amusement company, which has the majority of voting rights to Viacom. And the owner of Viacom is this 93-year-old white man named Sumner Redstone. I'm going to just leave that right there, okay? I ain't going to say nothing else. Now, racism is not possible, okay? Racism is not possible coming from blacks, okay? The definition of racism is it is control of a majority segment of a population, either economically, politically, and or socially, by imposing laws that meaningfully restrict their lives. Tell me one thing that black people are doing, legal or otherwise, that control the majority of whites economically, politically, or socially in a meaningful way that restricts your lives. You could say affirmative action is racist, for example, but is that affecting the majority of whites? No, because if that was the case, all of the institutions in America that have affirmative action at the very least would be predominantly black. And I went to the University of Michigan, go blue, but I don't remember it being predominantly black. Trust and believe that. Okay. And is it imposing or restricting your lives in a meaningful way? Are you still getting jobs? Are you still occupying the majority of Congress? Do we still only have one black president in the entire history of the United States of America? Not possible, right? Bigoted, prejudice, yes. Racist, no. Y'all, pick up a book or at least go on Google before you say ignorant stuff like that, okay? Now, where is racism? It's alive and well worldwide, okay? And what I mean by that is that people can say that there's all of these equal rights as much as you want, but in the end of the day, if you look at these comments, y'all, it is overwhelmingly spewed full of hatred throughout all of these comments, and they're from white people. There might be a couple of black people that will agree, but the majority of it is white people, and the majority of comments are in agreement with this young lady, okay? Now, this could just be words, right? But walk with me on this. These are your HR reps, your managers, your bosses, your CEOs, your teachers, your political administrators, your educational administrators. These are people who are living, working, and running the United States of America. And with the white population being the majority of American population, and with comments like this, it lets me know that racism is alive and well. And no matter how many equal rights that we have, in truth, we have attitudes like these. And when they're looking at a resume that says Shaquanda Wilson versus John Smith, they're going to give John Smith the interview and the opportunity because Shaquanda is exactly the person that they're talking about in these comments when they're spewing all this hate. They are not just keeping this hate and this racism and this bigotry and this prejudice to themselves in the comments on Facebook videos. They're living it, they're breathing it, and they're spreading it to other people and their children. So, I'm gonna need this chick. What's her name again? this non-factor. Tomi Lahren, and I'm gonna need Becky with the bad grades. Both of y'all, sit down, okay? Okay, one last thing before I go. Thank you to all of my new subscribers and every single person that clicks on the videos. I don't have many views so far, and I don't have many subscribers so far, but every single one of those hits and new subscribers mean the world to me. And I really appreciate you just hearing my voice and commenting and having like an exchange of ideas. I love that. Thank you to NYC Chocolate 7777. You have encouraged me in a very meaningful way every single time that I've posted a video, and you were even the person that really gave me the courage to even go ahead and start making these videos. So I just want to thank you so much for your undying support and encouragement. Until next time, everybody, love and blessings.